I came home dead on my feet, boots still caked in dried mud and sawdust clinging to my jacket. 12 hours straight at the mill, double shift. No warning. Foreman just shrugged and said, "You're the only one I trust to not screw this up." My back was screaming, hands were raw, and my stomach was running on black coffee and 2 stale vending machine muffins. Kelsey's backpack was dumped in the hallway. She was curled up on the couch, dead asleep, still holding her tablet. I bent down to kiss her forehead, then dragged myself toward the kitchen, peeled off one boot, and yanked open the freezer. I figured I'd microwave some lasagna or those crappy chicken nuggets she pretends to like. That's when I heard my dad's voice from the living room. Calm, too calm. I froze. He only used that voice when someone was about to get bulldozed. I walked in slow. The overhead light was on above the dining table, but the whole room felt colder than usual. Dad sat at the head, arms folded like he was running a budget meeting. Mom was next to him, lips pursed, not making eye contact. "Before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from?" Dad slid a folder toward me, like it was a subpoena. "We're formalizing care for Ricky," he said. "It's time to make things official." I opened the folder. Legal-looking documents. My name printed everywhere. Responsible party, monthly support, caregiver fund. They wanted me to cash out my retirement, $42,000 after taxes, and start sending $1,800 a month to support Ricky's needs. I blinked at them. "Are you serious? I have a mortgage. Kelsey's in school. Groceries are already a stretch." Mom didn't even blink. "This is about family. He needs full-time care. You're the only one with the means." "The means?" I laughed once. "You think I've got money sitting in a pile somewhere?" Dad cut in. "You owe this to him. You owe it to us." I shoved the papers back toward him. "I've already been helping for years. Medical co-pays, supplies, gas for your appointments." They looked at each other. Then Mom looked me straight in the face. "Because you're the reason he's in that chair." I just stood there, jacket still on, boots still half-laced, heart thudding like a drum in my ears. And for the first time in years, I realized they weren't asking me. They were telling me. I dropped the folder on the table. "You really think I owe you 42 grand and 1,800 a month because of something that happened when I was 17? Dad leaned back in his chair like he'd been waiting for that. "You were supposed to take him to tryouts." I felt my jaw clench. "I had a busted carb. My dirt bike was in pieces." "You said you'd give him a ride," Mom cut in. "He waited for you." "He found another way," I snapped. "That's not on me." "He borrowed a scooter because of you," she shot back. "A cheap piece of junk. He had to hitch a ride 2 towns over. You were the older brother. That was your job." I wanted to walk out. I almost did. But something about the way they were tag-teaming this, so calm, like they were reciting from a script. They'd rehearsed it. Dad folded his hands. "You think we wanted this life for him? You think we wanted to lose our son's future?" My stomach turned. "I didn't take his future. You didn't protect it either," he said. I stared at them. At the 2 people who'd guilted me with the same tired story for almost 20 years. And stupid me. I let them. I paid Ricky's co-pays, sent money when he needed new equipment. I never made it a thing. I just did it, quietly, out of guilt, out of some sick sense that I owed them for what happened that day. "Just give me some time," I said, voice tight. "Let me breathe. Let me talk to Kelsey. Figure out how we can make this work." "No," Dad snapped. "This isn't a negotiation. You've coasted long enough." "Coasted? I work 12-hour shifts. I've been covering Ricky's stuff for years." "Barely," Mom hissed. "He needs more than scraps." "Then why the hell haven't you sold the boat?" I fired back. "You've got a second car, a timeshare. Don't tell me I'm the only one with anything left to give." They didn't flinch, not even a twitch. Then Dad said it, flat and final. "We kept this family together. You owe us." It felt like all the air got sucked out of the room. I stepped back, trying to process what the hell was happening. I was supposed to be heating up dinner for my daughter. Now I was getting hit with a demand letter in my own kitchen. Then Mom leaned forward and said, "You don't want us to tell Pastor Graham what's going on, do you?" I blinked. "Excuse me?" "Or your boss at the plant," Dad added, like they were reading off a menu. "Be a shame if they heard you were turning your back on your disabled brother." My stomach twisted. That wasn't just low, that was a threat. I didn't say anything. I just picked up the folder and walked out. I sat in my truck for a long time, hands shaking. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I saw her name, Tessa Wilkins. We hadn't spoken in 15 years, maybe more. We were tight in high school. Then life happened. I got a job. She went to college out of state. She'd wanted to be a lawyer since we were kids. Said it to everyone who would listen. I hit call, voicemail. I almost hung up, but I didn't. Tess, it's me. Listen, I've got a situation. Legal, family, big mess. I don't know who else to call. If you're still doing law stuff, call me back, yeah? I hung up. Then I just sat there in the dark. One boot off, dirt on the floor mat, chest tight, no dinner, no rest, just one thought pounding through my head. What if they've been lying this whole time? Tessa called me back the next morning. Her voice hadn't changed, still fast, sharp, and straight to the point. I've got court till noon. Meet me at Keller's Diner around 1. By the time I got there, my nerves were shot. Keller's was the same hole in the wall from high school, same chipped counter, same smell of burned coffee and bacon grease. I slid into a booth by the window. She showed up 5 minutes later, hair tied up, still in her blazer, eyes tired but alert. "Hey," she said, setting her briefcase down. "You sound rough." "Yeah," I muttered. "Long week." She gave a half smile. "So, what's the disaster?" I told her everything, from the care agreement to the threats about my boss and church. She didn't interrupt once, just stirred her coffee and kept her eyes on me. When I finished, she leaned back, studying me like I was a witness she needed to protect. "Okay," she said finally. "Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen the accident report?" The words didn't even register at first. "The what?" "The report," she repeated, "from Ricky's crash." I frowned. "No, I mean, why would I? My parents handled all that." She gave me a look that said, "That's exactly the problem." Then she reached into her briefcase, pulled out a thin folder, and slid it across the table. "Read." I hesitated. "What is this?" "The public record," she said. "I requested it earlier this week. It came through today." I opened the folder. First page, police header, date, location. But the address stopped me cold, behind Lincoln High School, not the baseball fields, not the highway to the tryouts. "Tessa, this can't be right." "It is," she said. "Keep reading." I scanned the report. Ricky had been riding a friend's scooter. Passenger, female, 16, his girlfriend. They were traveling at a high rate of speed through the service road behind the school. No helmets. He ran a red light. The truck driver had the green. My throat went dry. "No, that's not," Dad said. "He was going to tryouts." Tessa shook her head. "He wasn't. The officer's statement says they were seen earlier behind the bleachers. Witnesses said he was showing off." I kept reading. Truck driver attempted to brake. Collision unavoidable. Then the witness statements. Kids from school. They saw Ricky revving the engine, heard his girlfriend laughing before the crash. He'd been trying to pop a wheelie. I dropped the paper like it was on fire. This was a joyride." "Yeah," she said quietly. "And your parents knew." I stared at her. "How do you know that?" "Because the report was mailed to your house," she said, tapping the address printed at the top. "Your dad signed for it. There's a copy of his signature." For a few seconds, all I could hear was the diner noise, plates clattering, a coffee machine hissing. Then it hit me. "They knew," I said slowly. "They knew the whole time." Tessa nodded. "They built their story around you, made you the scapegoat, probably figured guilt would keep you in line." I pressed my palms into my eyes. "Jesus Christ." She slid the file closer. "Look, I don't know what you've been told all these years, but this wasn't your fault. Not legally, not morally. Your brother made his own choices." I looked up. "You don't understand. I live by that guilt. Every bill I paid, every hour I worked, it was all because I thought I owed them." "Well," she said, voice steady, "maybe it's time they start owing you." I stared at her for a long second. "You think they did this on purpose?" She didn't even hesitate. "I think they saw a way to control you, and they took it." I leaned back, trying to breathe, but it felt like the walls were closing in. My whole life had been built around that accident. The reason I stayed close, the reason I never fought back. And now I was staring at proof that the story I'd carried like a weight around my neck was a lie. Tessa gathered the papers. "You want my help? I'll need copies of whatever they gave you." The care agreement. Any old bank statements, letters, emails, everything. I nodded. You'll have it. She looked at me across the table. You ready to find out how deep this goes? I met her eyes. I don't think I've ever been more ready. I tore into the paperwork like a man possessed. Tessa made a pot of terrible diner coffee at her apartment and set my laptop on the kitchen table. We worked through the night, printing bank statements, scanning mortgage records, calling numbers off faded invoices and old collection notices. She spoke in that lawyer cadence, sharp, direct, always 2 moves ahead, while I fed her whatever I had stashed away from mailboxes and old emails. You sure you want me to run your name through this? She asked, watching the screen. No choice, I said. If there's anything crooked, I want it found. She typed, called, and cold emailed banks. By dawn, we had a stack of documents that made my head spin. A second mortgage popped up on my credit report, taken out 3 years ago. The address matched my house. The signature on the mortgage application looked like mine at first glance, but when Tessa blew it up and compared it to my driver's license signature, it was obvious. A shaky forgery, the loop of my G done wrong, the S too rounded. I'd never signed that paper. That's not your hand, she said. Someone forged you. I felt like I was watching from outside my body. Next, credit card statements. Cards I never knew existed. Charges that read like a bad joke. A weekend at a lake resort. Airline tickets with mom's name attached. A charge at a marina for boat storage. My bank records had transfers, small ones, regular ones, labeled Care Fund. I followed those transfers. Only a fraction, about 35%, ever went to Ricky's medical provider or therapy vendors. The rest funneled into accounts with labels that smelled like entitlement, mortgage payoff, holiday travel, family emergency, withdrawals that lined vacations and a new ATV for Dad. Tessa printed a pie chart. 65% went to everything but Ricky. You're kidding, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. They used my money for vacations? They used your name and guilt as an ATM, she said. They kept you paying while they bled other accounts dry. Every discovery felt like a punch. I found emails where Mom had asked the bank to adjust automatic withdrawals from my checking when I'd sent money. Emails where Dad signed off on house repairs that were actually payments to a contractor who did a new deck at their cabin. There were receipts with my name typed on top like a stamp. We compiled everything into a thick binder and brought it to Ricky. He lived in a small assisted apartment 2 towns over. He was quieter than I remembered, thinner, hands cold to the touch. When I slid the binder across the table, he flinched like I'd slapped him. You look like hell, he said. No pity, just flat observation. Read it, Tessa said. Her voice didn't soften. All of it. He flipped through pages with trembling fingers. At first he was defensive, muttering that he knew his parents were trying to keep the family together, that nobody else would look after him. He kept saying, they took care of me, like it was a shield. I'd wanted anger. I expected anger. What I didn't expect was the look on his face when he hit the mortgage document with my forged signature and then the Care Fund spreadsheets. You knew, I said, slow. He didn't answer. He folded his hands over his lap and looked down. Tessa's voice was ice. You were in on this? I didn't want to lose them, he said finally, the words falling like gravel. I didn't want to watch them break. They told me, if I said anything, they'd lose everything. They threatened to put it all on you publicly. I was scared. I thought if I kept quiet, they'd stay. I didn't know how to undo it. I didn't know who to tell. I felt something split open inside me. Not anger at first, just raw, betrayed. The room smelled like disinfectant and old paper. Ricky's hands were shaking. He kept rubbing his palms together, as if trying to erase fingerprints. You let them use my name, I said. My voice went flat. You let them forge me. I'm sorry, he whispered, and for the first time I saw the boy who'd once begged me to drive him to tryouts, small, frightened, desperate not to lose 2 people he loved. Tessa leaned forward. Do you understand what this is? Fraud, forgery, theft. His laugh broke in half. I know. It's just, what was I supposed to do? Tell them? I'm the one in a chair. They said I'd be alone. I was scared to die alone. There it was, fear stitched into confession. He hadn't protected himself. He'd protected them. And they had protected themselves by turning me into the sacrificial lamb. You need to tell the truth, I said. It wasn't a plea. It was a demand. He nodded, tears tracking down his face. "I'll say it," he choked. "I'll tell anyone. I'll sign whatever. Just don't cut them off entirely. They're all I've got." Tessa closed the binder and stood up steady. "This changes the legal picture. You cooperating, honest on-record statements from you will be crucial." Ricky looked at me, ashamed and desperate, and for a second I saw everything we'd both lost to silence. Then he reached out and gripped my hand like a lifeline. "I'm sorry," he said again. I didn't know whether to pull away or hold on. I squeezed back hard, because whatever else had happened, he was still my brother. We left his place with a plan, statements, sworn affidavits, and a trail we could take to a prosecutor. Tessa's eyes were already on the next moves: banks to notify, forged documents to challenge, criminal complaints to file. Outside, the sky was raw and gray. Ricky's grip was still warm in my palm when I let go. I felt like I was stepping off a cliff. Terrified, but finally moving. We didn't wait. Tessa sent the cease and desist letter that same night. Certified mail, signature required. My name at the top, bold as hell. Cease all financial activity in the name of me. It was short, sharp, legally loaded. She followed it with a formal identity fraud report to the state attorney general's office, and I filed a police report at the county station first thing in the morning. The cop at the desk looked uncomfortable reading it, like he was realizing just how deep this went. We weren't just playing defense anymore. Tessa contacted her journalist friend too, some woman named Danielle who'd written for the Ledger, a few big pieces on elder abuse and financial scams inside families. Tessa gave her a teaser: forged mortgage, fraudulent care fund, paper trail tied to a disabled son. Danielle was in by noon. We hit first, and it rattled them. 3 days later, I got a letter from a lawyer with my parents' last name stamped on it. Legal representation for Mom and Dad. Inside, 4 pages of nonsense dressed up as legal pressure. They claimed I owed them moral restitution, that my family responsibility extended beyond legal obligations. They didn't even deny the money trail, just doubled down. The last line read, "If you continue this course of action, our clients are prepared to pursue guardianship of their disabled son and restrict your access to him for his well-being." I handed it to Tessa without saying a word. She skimmed it, face unreadable, then looked up. "They're bluffing, but we'll bury it anyway." 2 days after that, they filed the petition, a full guardianship request over Ricky, claiming I was mentally unstable, financially erratic, and had created a hostile environment for their vulnerable son. They submitted old emails I'd written in anger, out-of-context texts, even screenshots of my bank account with overdrafts from 3 years ago. They were coming at me with everything they had. What they didn't know was, we were ready. Tessa filed a formal response with attached exhibits: the forged mortgage, the credit card records, every line item of their fake care fund, plus copies of my identity theft report and the cease and desist they had ignored, and then the knockout. Ricky's signed affidavit, 3 pages, notarized, his statement in writing that he'd been manipulated into silence and that the financial abuse wasn't just real, it was ongoing. We walked into the preliminary hearing like it was a war room. The judge was a hard-eyed woman with zero patience. My parents' attorney started soft, leaning on sympathy, talking about family breakdowns and confusion over financial boundaries. Then Tessa stood up. She hit them with facts, clear, fast, and brutal. The forged mortgage application, the accounts opened in my name, the documented misuse of Ricky's medical funds. She didn't raise her voice once. She didn't need to. The judge looked right at my parents and said, "You're not petitioning for his care. You're trying to silence a whistleblower." They didn't say a word. Mom's lips were pressed so tight they went white. Dad stared at the floor like he could find a way out if he stared hard enough. The petition was denied. No guardianship. No restrictions. Full stop. Outside the courthouse, Tessa cracked her neck like she'd just stretched before round 2. "They'll try something else," she said. "Good," I told her. "So will we." We weren't backing down. We were just getting started. The invite came folded in a cream envelope like it was a wedding, printed in bold script: family meeting, important discussion regarding Ricky's care. At the bottom, Mom had signed it, "With love, Margaret and Thomas." Like that erased everything. Tessa read it, raised an eyebrow, and tossed it on the table. "They're trying to beat us with performance." They think they can win the crowd, I said. Then we'll give them an audience. We didn't come alone. Tessa called Danielle, the journalist, who showed up in dark jeans and a blazer, press badge visible. I called Uncle Cal, Dad's younger brother. He'd always been the odd man out at family stuff, didn't talk much, but back when I was a kid, he pulled me aside once and said, "Your dad's a lot of bark. Don't let him chew you up too." He met us in the parking lot of the church's community center, arms crossed, face like stone. "Been waiting for this day," he said. "Let's go shake the tree." Inside, folding chairs were lined up in a circle. Family filled the room, cousins, aunts, people I hadn't seen in years. Pastor Graham sat near the front, hands folded on his lap. Mom stood at the center, all business, like she was about to lead a prayer circle. Dad flanked her, arms crossed, playing stoic. Mom started. "We're here to talk about unity, about support. Some of you have heard lies, some of you have been confused by gossip. We want to clarify everything." Then she motioned toward Ricky's empty chair, like it was a prop. Dad stepped forward. "Our son needs care, real care. We've done our best. But his brother," he pointed, straight up pointed at me, "has abandoned his duty. He's attacking his family. And for what? Money?" Murmurs went through the room. A few people shook their heads. One of my cousins looked down at his shoes. I walked in mid-sentence. Tessa right beside me, Danielle behind, recorder on. Uncle Cal closed the door behind us with a loud click. "Funny thing about lies," I said, cutting through Dad's speech. "They get a lot harder to hold once people bring receipts." Tessa opened her case and started handing out copies. Police report, witness statements, bank forgery reports. I didn't say another word. I let the facts talk. Uncle Cal walked straight over to the folding table, picked up the care fund ledger my parents had laid out like evidence of sainthood, and flipped it to the last page. "You labeled a $2,300 boat deposit as a wheelchair upgrade?" Dad's jaw tightened. "You don't understand what it takes." "No," Cal said. "I think I finally do." Ricky came in just then, rolled up slow. His eyes darted around the room, but he didn't stop. He parked himself in the middle, looked at Mom, then Dad, then all of them. "I lied," he said, voice low but solid. "I let them make him the villain. I knew the truth. I knew it from day one." You could have heard a pin drop. "I wasn't going to baseball tryouts. I was with my girlfriend. I stole a scooter and ran a red light. It was my fault, not his, not even close." Mom's face went pale. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "I didn't speak up," Ricky said, "because they told me we'd lose everything. They said he'd leave, that no one would take care of me if I sided with him. So I stayed quiet." Pastor Graham stood up. His voice was soft, but it cut like a knife. "This was never God's plan," he said. "This was control. This was fear used as currency." My dad's face didn't change, but I saw it. The crack. The one thing he couldn't out-talk. A room full of witnesses. A son who finally told the truth. Danielle stepped forward. "I'll be publishing this story. I suggest anyone with questions direct them to public records. You'll find everything there." Mom slumped into a chair like the air had been yanked out of her. I looked at my uncle. He gave me a slow nod. Tessa tapped her binder. "This is just the beginning. They built their empire on a lie. We're just pulling the bricks down." I walked out first. This time, no one tried to stop me. We left that room with nothing but truth behind us and 1,000 pounds off our backs. First stop was the county disability office. Tessa walked Ricky through the entire application line by line. He qualified for more than either of us expected. Housing, transportation, even a small monthly stipend. Stuff he should have had years ago, but our parents never told him. Never even mentioned it. "Why would they?" Ricky said, eyes down. "Your paychecks were easier." We moved him into a clean, modern assisted living place 2 weeks later. 2 bedrooms, wide doorways, fully staffed. Paid for through a program Tessa got approved in 4 days flat. The first morning there, Ricky wheeled himself to the coffee machine and just sat there, staring at it. "No one's yelling," he said. "Get used to it," I told him. My own life took work. I called every credit bureau. Took months, but I got my name cleared from the second mortgage. Tessa had filed paperwork for identity fraud and started the process to get restitution through court. I opened a new retirement account. Nothing like the 42 grand I'd already lost, but something. A start. I picked up one extra weekend shift, started chipping away at the debt they'd stuck me with. Wasn't easy, but it was mine this time. Ricky started rehab the next month. Real rehab, not just the bare-bones sessions Dad had scheduled so they could pocket the rest. Twice a week, full-body movement training. He got fitted for better equipment, started using a new chair with better support. First time he crossed a room unassisted, he texted me a photo. Made it, didn't fall. No one yelled, no lies. I stared at it for 10 minutes before I replied. Proud of you, seriously. We met for lunch every other Saturday after that, talked like brothers. Didn't tiptoe around the past, but didn't live in it either. He asked a lot about Kelsey. I told him about her math tests, her weird obsession with jelly sandwiches, the time she tried to microwave a fork. Sounds like you, he joked. We weren't perfect, but we were honest. My parents? Different story. The police opened an investigation into insurance fraud and forgery. Danielle handed over everything she'd collected. Emails, reports, Ricky's affidavit. Turns out my parents had faked repair invoices tied to Ricky's care to claim extra reimbursements through their homeowner's policy. Tens of thousands. Word spread fast. The church board called an emergency meeting. Pastor Graham stood at the pulpit and announced a full freeze on all donations to my parents' care fund until further notice. He didn't name names. He didn't have to. Their phone numbers went dark. No calls, no texts. Mom's prayer chain vanished overnight. Dad's Sunday school class was reassigned to someone else. Uncle Cal took over the church finances in the meantime. He called me after and said, "You did right, even if it hurts." And it did hurt. But pain with truth? That's different than pain built on lies. One night, I drove past their house. The porch light was off. For once, I didn't stop, didn't slow down, just kept driving toward my own home, my own kid, my own life. That was the night I realized I didn't owe them anything anymore. Not money, not silence, not guilt, nothing. 6 months later, I wasn't just surviving, I was finally living. I'd cut down to 4 shifts a week at the plant. The overtime pay was nice, but I didn't miss crawling home at midnight with sawdust in my lungs and Kelsey already asleep. Now, we had real time. Friday movie nights, burned pancakes on Saturday mornings. I even coached her Little League team. Badly, but she loved it. One afternoon, while she did homework on the couch, I registered for night classes. Engineering degree. The one I'd walked away from after Ricky's accident, 15 years late. Still felt good. Ricky was doing better than I'd ever seen him. Stronger, sharper. He'd started reading disability law like it was a hobby. One day he said, "You know how many people get chewed up like we did?" Then he pitched it, starting a local support group. We named it Second Ledger. First meeting had 3 people, then 7, then 12. All adults who'd been manipulated, used, guilted by family. Some were still stuck in it. Others were clawing their way out. We brought in a social worker, then a lawyer, then a benefits coordinator. We helped people apply for SSI, fight guardianship abuse, cut through red tape. It was messy, emotional, loud, and needed. Every damn bit of it. Danielle's expose dropped the same week we hit 20 members. The cost of guilt. Front page of the Sunday Ledger, full-color photo of Ricky and me at the support group. He'd hated posing for it, but ended up using the photo as his phone lock screen. The article pulled no punches, laid out every detail. The forged mortgage, the fake care fund, the insurance scam, the smear campaign. Quotes from Pastor Graham, from Uncle Cal, even a line from Kelsey about Daddy working to help people now. I saved a physical copy and brought it to Ricky's apartment the next morning. He was in the middle of cooking eggs, burning them really. "Got something," I said, tossing it on his lap. He flipped to the last page, scanned the bottom. "What's the closer?" I read it out loud. "Sometimes, the truth is the only thing that can break the chains of a family's lie." Ricky leaned back in his chair and just nodded. "About damn time," he said. We didn't say anything else. We didn't need to. The phone rang a few minutes later, someone asking when the next group meeting was. Ricky answered it, calm, confident, like he was meant to be doing this all along. And I stood there, leaning against the counter, watching my brother start over, just like I had. The county courthouse smelled like old air and burnt coffee. Carpet hadn't been changed since the early 90s. I sat on the left side of the room next to Tessa, the binder balanced on my lap. Every page flagged and labeled. Across from us, my parents looked like they'd aged a decade. Mom in a gray suit that swallowed her, Dad stiff in his old military blazer, still playing the respectable act. Their lawyer stood and cleared his throat like he was about to deliver something historic. Your Honor, we move to dismiss this fraud case. Our clients had verbal consent from their son, years of accepted transactions, shared funds, and no prior objection. The judge didn't flinch. Mid-60s, glasses sliding down his nose, thick hands resting on the desk like bricks. Tessa stood, calm, crisp. We submit that consent was never given. The signature on the second mortgage is fraudulent, and the financial records show extensive unauthorized use of my client's identity. She passed the forged document up. The judge held it, studied it, then looked at my driver's license, the signature printed on a credit card app from 4 years ago, and back again. He held the 2 pages side by side. "This isn't even close," he said. His voice echoed. Then he looked up, straight at my parents. "And your own son, Ricky, confirmed this isn't his brother's handwriting." Silence, thick and sharp. Mom fidgeted in her seat, twisting her wedding band like it might save her. Dad didn't move, just stared ahead, blank. The judge looked at the clerk. "Motion denied." He slammed the gavel. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. We stood. My knees didn't shake. I didn't blink. Outside, the sun was too bright, but the air was clean. Tessa walked ahead, flipping through texts. I was halfway down the steps when I heard the heels. Mom caught up, grabbed my arm with the same hand that used to wipe blood off my knees when I was 5. "You're ruining us," she hissed. I pulled my arm free, looked her in the face. "No, you ruined yourself," I said. "I just stopped helping you get away with it." She froze, didn't say another word. Ricky was waiting by the curb, sitting in his new chair, hoodie pulled over his head like he didn't want to be recognized. But when our eyes met, he nodded. That was all we needed. That evening, I picked up Kelsey from school and took her straight to McAllister's Grill. We ordered fries, chicken tenders, 2 chocolate shakes, and dessert first. Her idea. She laughed so hard at something dumb, I said. She snorted, said I was the best dad in the world. I didn't argue. That night, I went to bed without checking my phone, and for the first time in over a decade, I slept the whole way through.